Earlier this month, I made a video going over my more negative thoughts on Bloodlines 2. At the end of this video, I said that the next trailer, the newly released extended gameplay reveal, would either make or break my thoughts on the current direction of the project. And in all honesty, the Chinese room delivered something that I wasn't expecting. A full 15-minute mission demonstration alongside a Q&A. As a long-time fan of the World of Darkness, and a fan of the original Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, I have some perhaps impossibly high expectations. But from the gameplay reveal, I can say that I have more hope for this game than I initially did back when that narrative trailer was first released. But I won't just be singing the praises of Bloodlines 2 in this video. I want to make an effort going forwards with my reviews to be more analytical about what is shown, rather than either being solely negative or positive about this title. So, with that said, let's go over to the showcase video and pick apart what I found interesting about the gameplay, and what I feel can be improved upon going forwards. I do want to iterate first that these opinions are my own, and specifically related to the extended gameplay trailer. You may disagree, and if you do, please leave a comment with your thoughts. I try to read every comment to gather the thoughts of the community, and hearing your opinions is always important to me. But first, if you enjoy lore videos, I make a lot of lore-focused content based around the World of Darkness. Primarily, Vampire the Masquerade, of which Bloodlines 2 is very much a part of. If you enjoy vampires or gritty universes filled with horrifying creatures, well, feel free to subscribe and check out my other content. I have a video coming out very soon all about vampiric cities. Some links will be in the description below. My first thoughts about the extended gameplay trailer concerns the presenters, and I'm happy that the community manager Josh and the creative director Alex were front and center for this piece of vital primary promotional material. Josh, I feel, is a person I want to hear more from in these frontline pieces. From his work on Strange Adventures and already covering Bloodlines related content when it was still being worked on by Hardsuit Labs, I feel in good hands when he's presenting this type of material. He has worked on promotional features before, mainly within the visual dev diaries and developer BTS promos, but I feel he should definitely be integrated into these reveals more. Alex Skidmore is also a great voice to hear from, especially within the Q&A. It's great having a deeper sense of clarity about the design of Bloodlines 2, and I feel Alex delivers on this in later segments of the video. The gameplay itself is interesting, but I have a lot of thoughts about the visuals showcased. Starting with navigation and setting. I love what the team have done with the lighting and visuals, especially regarding the location you find yourself in within this mission. The artificial light is constantly changing and altering the ambience of the scene as you push into the more treacherous parts of the mission, and that is something which I was excited to see from my previous video. One thing I wasn't too keen on was the interaction with certain objects which contain lore information, such as news clippings or items. From what I can see, when interacting with an object, you are automatically taken to a menu screen, where the information is presented in a non-diegetic way. Something about the first Bloodlines game was that information like this was always displayed diegetically, meaning that if you were to interact with a newspaper, you saw the newspaper there and then. It often didn't highlight information in any great detail, but it did give the impression your character was picking up an item and then using it. The menu screen isn't cutting it for me personally, but that's a very nitpicky point, and something they'll perhaps iron out later in development. Something I feel I do want to talk about is the interaction between the protagonist Fire and Willem. I am, admittedly, not the biggest fan of the dialogue in this game from the scene. For me, it's passable, but it's not the strongest point of the gameplay shown. The dialogue to me does seem awkward in places. When the team is showcasing the intimidation route, the actual script work is impressive, but sometimes the delivery is a little off for me. I'm not going to keep bringing up the limited dialogue options. I have already expressed that in my previous video, and if you want a TLDR, I feel the options should at least show a little more variation. But continuing on the theme of issues I had initially, the addition of Fabian, the voice inside the protagonist's head, is something we heard a lot in this gameplay reveal. I didn't find Fabian's voice distracting, but neither did I feel it exactly offered much in terms of adding a level of depth or intensity to the scene showcased. Sometimes the voice of Fabian was a little annoying, but hopefully hopefully, when we get more reveals, we'll understand the prominence of this voice a lot more. Either that, or it'll just be something we'll have to live with through play sessions. Now, in contrast to my previous video, I have a fair few more positive things to say about the design of Bloodlines 2. I did, overall, enjoy this gameplay reveal, but for three major elements: the UI, the movement, and the combat. Now, this is an RPG. Choices and story should always be more important. But for a gameplay reveal which has cherry-picked a mission which highlights the action mechanics, I feel it does a good job at conveying how we will control fire when the game releases. The UI, to start, is very clear, and that is something which I feel a lot of modern games struggle at. UI in many games I've played or seen recently has oftentimes been overcomplicated, or outright covers up the gameplay through health bars, stats icons, etc, etc. Here, it's rather clear. You have your health bar to the left, your disciplines to the right, and occasionally XP will flag up when you've earned it in the top corner. I like this simplified design. It's clear to me what these elements do and how I can utilize them. Obviously, this is for a controller setup, but I'm sure for PC it will be near enough the same. Other parts of your HUD do indicate where enemies are during combat, which I think is helpful. In some cases, these big red arrows did overcrowd the screen, which I would personally find a little bit distracting in these fast-paced fights, but otherwise it was a helpful mechanic. There also appears to be a power within the game which acts as a sort of sensory sight. Whilst Auspex is a power within VTM which allows a vampire heightened senses and can be powered up to perceive things far beyond ordinary sight, the Brujah do not have access to this ability under ordinary circumstances. So I feel the ability to activate these vampiric senses must be either a mark-specific mechanic, meaning it comes from the cursed mark on the protagonist's hand, or it is simply something like Auspex learned from another clan, which can be done and might be an interesting mechanic if it is available in the game. Movement and traversing the environment is also something which I felt was very satisfactory from what was shown. Whilst this gameplay was Brujah specific, it was interesting to see that you could move around the space to reach certain areas or around objects through climbing, performing longer jumps, and what I can only describe as a vampire glide. The actual level itself seems to accommodate this type of movement as well, with enemies not just being scattered around the ground floor, but being over walkways above and on different height levels. I like this type of dynamic level design, as it leaves the door open for stealth or more creative forms of combat. There are some additional powers which complement this aspect, which I feel are implemented by the Chinese room to accommodate the dynamic level design. There is a telekinesis power shown which allows you to pick up smaller objects and interact with them, which is a nifty little move, and whilst not exactly lore accurate to the common Brujah, I'm sure this is something to do with the additional powers they have gained from the mark. I do hope it doesn't become a powerful move and is only supplementary to the disciplines, but I'll just have to wait and see that mechanic more in further promotional material. The combat shown was something that I found fun to watch. The Brujah clan presented in the trailer was well matched for the gameplay, as the combat felt both powerful and intense, and showcased a few different animations which implied discipline use. Explained in the Q&A afterwards, the Brujah have the ability to meld both their supernatural speed through celerity and supernatural power through potence, to both hit hard and move quickly. And so combining this with quick dodges and powered up consecutive normal punches was satisfying to watch. There are also new animations which show executions through either brutal feeding or literal chopping of heads, and this didn't take away from the pace of the combat at hand. There were parts where a knockback punch did send two enemies into a mild model clipping nightmare, but on the whole, the variation of animations kept the whole momentum going. It felt like combat that I would like to experience myself, and I'm happy with the route they're taking with that. Now, graphics is a big topic for many gamers, and it is a key factor for me when choosing to play a game. The Unreal Engine 5 utilized in Bloodlines 2 does, in my eyes, a great job when it comes to atmospheric lighting and general set design of the mission showcased. The areas look well polished, but they don't feel like they've been plucked from some asset store. Everything appears to have its place, and especially in this mission where the set is changing due to the Nosferatu Willem seemingly distorting Fire's perception through what I can only assume is a high-level obfuscate ability. The atmosphere is consistently shifting and becoming more unstable, as Willem is attempting to uphold this mirage. The floating books which you can punch punch away is also a nice little addition. However, when it comes to character models, and perhaps more importantly their movements, I feel some things can be tweaked. There is still a little stiffness when it comes to these animations. In combat, for the most part, everything flows nicely. However, the little insert scenes where either Willem is what I can only describe as morbing in your face seem a little bit disjointed. When the conversation cutscene starts, the animation as Fire is walking towards Willem I feel are a bit distracting and don't flow as well as they should, and I feel this could be a lot more streamlined. I would personally like it if the dialogue animations and cutscenes flowed as well as the combat. When you enter a cutscene area, if that's definitely a must, I feel you should just flow straight into it. I don't think there's a need to show Fire walking up to Willem, because to be honest, we will have done that already ourselves. It's a small nitpick, but when the combat and movement flow so well, it feels a bit jarring when the story elements of Bloodlines 2 suddenly bring you to a halt. At least that's what it feels like from the gameplay shown at this point. However, there is obviously a certain style the Chinese Room are implementing when it comes to Bloodlines 2. It's apparent to me that there are some punkish undertones to this work, and I invite that wholeheartedly. Admittedly, I would love there to be more, and I think there's space to bring back some of the gothic and punk vibes to this project, but I had initially expected that this iteration of Bloodlines would feel completely clinical, if not overly polished, to accommodate a modernized approach to the series. But to see the slight bombastic designs of some of the characters and the story elements at play, they do subtly hint back to the original themes of the World of Darkness, of which it was built upon. It might not be in your face, but I feel it is there, and I do like that. Obviously, it would be nice if everything on a technical level was more polished. Yes, some of the textures do look a little, well, post-alpha, but this gameplay reveal has left me wanting to see more, rather than wanting them to pause production and rethink. I do think that from the gameplay I've seen within this reveal, the project is going in the right direction, but there are areas for improvement, and ways that the game can streamline itself. At the moment, Bloodlines 2 has a lot of elements simply from the narrative itself. Fabian and Fire both being persistent vocal entities is a lot, and there is the chance that Fabian may become more of a hindrance than an asset to the overall story. But I am yet to make any greater conclusion with that, as there's still a lot more to see. On a smaller level, I feel Bloodlines 2, if it isn't already, should introduce interacting with an NPC to initiate dialogue. Maybe this is mission specific to what was shown, but I feel like just walking up to Willem and then interacting with him is an easier way to start a dialogue interaction and may feel more fluid in the grander scope of the scene. These are nitpicks at the moment, and honestly, I would just like to see more conversational scenes to see if this is the case in other parts of the game. There are good things being showcased here, at least from my perspective. Yes, I do want Bloodlines 2 to succeed, but I also want it to be a good game, at least for my own satisfaction. I feel there definitely needs to be some work implemented on how dialogue functions at this current moment. There may not be the scope to add in more than 3 options at a time, but things can certainly be streamlined when it comes to how a general interaction flows, especially with 2 voiced characters at any given time. I feel that this and character creation are the 2 things which attract the most criticism at this point. And whilst we don't know anything about character creation right now, dialogue can most certainly be tweaked to offer a greater experience in the end product. To conclude my opinions on this reveal, I have more hope than I did. Whilst yes, the issues I had in my previous video are still there, I have seen more out of the project that I like, and there are certainly things within what was shown that I will hopefully enjoy. Bloodlines 2 looks like it's ironed out its combat essentials, and it can make efforts from now until release to optimize it and make it more fluid. What it needs to also focus on is just tuning that character dialogue. The current direction is that Fire is here to stay. I think there's the potential that this direction could be a good one, but there are elements of the current design which occasionally take me out of the experience. Maybe I just need to see more, but I also think that the parts of the game which stand out as being jarring can certainly be fine-tuned. I'm happy with what I've seen, but I understand that this video may have created even more division than what was there before. Some people will come away from this reveal feeling emboldened in their decision to support this game. Others will feel even more empowered to hate it. It is, as it stands, a game which is aiming to pave its own way, whilst also trying to appeal to the fans of a beloved game, which was intensely unique in its own way, and that is an extremely hard thing to do. All I can say is that I have a little bit more hope for Bloodlines 2 now. From what I've seen, it's not perfect, but it does look fun, and I can only hope that the story that goes along with it is as compelling as its predecessor.